Yes, few things happened last week which we couldn't share with our viewers and all of them in relation to things that were happening in court. I think that the day before Friday, I was sharing about the fact that James Quayson was going to be in court, and if he was going to be in court, one thing was set in the ruling on
the no case.
Submission of no case was going to happen, and that is either he walked free or he's asked to open his defense to charges 5 counts, which prosecution called 6 witnesses to more or less they point to the court that this is our evidence before the court, for which reason we have charged James Quayson for allegedly charges including forgery of official document and perjury, lying on oath. And that came on. And in fact, we were told in court that prosecution have filed latest or further disclosure document. And that further disclosure document, Justice Mary Quayson wanted to bring to the attention of the defense lawyers whether they have received it and what their immediate response will be. For that matter, the court was of the view that the ruling be deferred. But Chachuchi Kata, lead counsel for James Quayson, was of the view that prosecution was given enough time and again. They could not file that the additional disclosure or further disclosure, waited until the eve before the ruling to file that disclosure. And he thinks that that should not stop the ruling of the court, and that amount to the abuse of court processes. Again, there was an issue of passports forms, which one of the witnesses, the director of passport at the time, tendered in evidence. He didn't tender the original copy, but he tendered the photocopy. Prosecution promised to bring the original copy. As at the time that the court sat, he indicated to the court that that original copy of the passport form, which was tendered in evidence, has not been provided to the court. And so the court should take note of all these things. But the key is that the ruling should be delivered. Justice Mary Quayson looked at the situation and said, look, the court is minded to adjourn the case. So on the 9th of May, that is when, in April, I must say, 9th of April. Today is 2nd April, so sometime next week, that case will come out for the ruling to be determined. But I've been speaking to James Quayson, the Member of Parliament, who is at the center of this whole thing, and let's hear what he had to say.
We still have a week ahead of us, right? We're all anticipating everything will come to an end today. My friends, family, everybody. We've had this ongoing for too long. Everybody seems to be tired of it. So, you know, there's a reason for everything that happens in life. So I'm so patient enough, but also still resilient to push through. You know, 5 years I've gone through this. A week will make no difference, right? So it's going to happen. I thank you guys for your time.
I wish you all the best.
Quayson over there said that, look, he's waited patiently for 5 years. A week will not make any difference. He's still resilient, and he's waiting for next week to come so that that ruling will be done. And he's hopeful that he will be discharged. He will be let go at that particular point in time, because having looked at the evidence produced or adduced by prosecution witnesses, he and his lawyers are of the view that he shouldn't cross the stage of submission of no case. So he's hopeful that Justice Mary Quayson will free him, will discharge him, because the court will find that no case has been made. Prima facie, the word prima facie has become very controversial these days in relation to discussions that are happening
regarding the constitutional law.
Absolutely, constitutional law, where aspects of the Constitution, specifically Article 146,
has been,
and its related provisions have come into the
triggered, it's been challenged. I mean, we're seeking further interpretation. Yes,
that's how the law is.
Very the law is quite interesting. Yeah. So it's been a constitutional thriller.
Absolutely. Your understanding of certain words will not be the same as my understanding.
Exactly. So and that's the dynamism of law that I find fascinating. Because in one breath, somebody interprets the law differently. Another person will also interpret it differently. And that makes the law exciting.
And so that's where the Supreme Court is there. When there's a rival meaning of a provision, constitutional provision, and parties have put different interpretation on it. Then we have to go to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court, what exactly are these provisions saying for the Supreme Court to settle the matter? So it's quite interesting and all of that. But that's just by the way. So that is with respect to the James Quayson matter. Another case that also came out last week was the men's gold case. And Lily, the customers are worried. They are furious this time around because they think that the adjournment has become so much many these days. And it appears that they themselves do not understand the criminal proceedings. Coming to court all this while, in their mind, they know that once the one is jailed, they have their money in their pocket. I said, no,
but it doesn't end
work that way. There's so many processes that you have to activate and all of that. They think that, oh, coming to court, it means that the court is going to deal with the subject and all of that. So last week, they came to court, and I told you that GHOne and his lawyers are at the Court of Appeal. They are seeking the stay of proceedings, asking the court to put High Court to put proceedings on hold because they intend to challenge the order of Justice Ernest Owusu-Dapah, doctor, order for him to open his defense. He came to the court originally with that motion for stay of proceedings. It was dismissed. He said, no, I'm going to the Court of Appeal. Processes have been filed at the Court of Appeal, so the court wanted an update from the prosecution at the last court sitting. Watson Adama, who is a state attorney, indicated to the court that, in fact, assistant state attorney indicated to the court that they have filed all their processes. But the Court of Appeal, the way it works is that if you file your processes within the month, it's difficult for you to get, they have been told that you will not get a hearing date. But the Court of Appeal prepares their whole list beginning of every month. So today is the official working day in April. That is the day that they work on all other hearings for the month. So it's possible that they will fix a date within April. The court look at that. If the date will be fixed within April, we are not too sure which date will be fixed in April, then let's go to May. So the case was adjourned to May, hoping that by April, Court of Appeal would deal with the situation, and then the parties will come back to court, and then the High Court will have a clear view of how to proceed with the matter. But the men's gold customers, I spoke to the PRO of the customers, Fred Forson. Let's hear.
This is the 7th year since the collapse of men's gold, and it's not that our investment is lost. The state has been able to lay hand on some of the properties. We were told that even the accounts were frozen. Is there money in the account? And please, we want to use this medium. The Honorable Attorney General, the customers want to meet you. At least we want to meet you and tell us something. Let us know our fate. What is the state of the asset frozen? Isn't it possible that government can give us a bailout pending the final determination of the case? We believe that the government can do so to help us reduce the pain that we are going through. I mean, look at us. Some of them came with walking sticks. We have even one blind person who comes to court every day. There are people with various degrees of ailments, and they would want to come and hear something positive, something that will be very encouraging, something that will give them hope. And when we come, the matter is adjourned. Like I said, we do not fault the court. They are going through their process. But we still believe that where we are now, we want to call on His Excellency the President and the Honorable Finance Minister to step in to give us that cushion, that financial cushion, to enable us go through the process.
Okay, so that's Fred Forson.
Yes, Fred Forson. They want to meet the Attorney General. They want the President to intervene and all of that. But they have to also exercise patience, because when you go to court, the processes alone, what GHOne is doing at the Court of Appeal, the law allows him to do that. It's about time. It's about time that the processes are ready and then the parties are caught. Until such time that the Court of Appeal deals with the situation, now the High Court's hands are tied. So let me wait for my seniors, let them decide. And once they decide on whatever GHOne is seeking, then you have to come back to the High Court for proceedings to continue from there. So on May 6th, they'll be back in court, hoping that the Court of Appeal might have dealt with GHOne's processes, and then the outcome will come for the court to be clear with what to do next. GHOne is expected to open his defense file his processes, and that is where the case has gotten to. But he said that stay proceedings, hold on, let me go to the Court of Appeal and deal with whatever process is there, then I'll come back. But we hope that on May 6th, the court will be informed about the outcome of what is.
I mean, I understand the customers. If I was one of them, I mean, obviously, I'll also be having these frustrations.
You know, what is even more worrying is that they come from different places across the country. Some come from Severioso, some Kumasi.
Severioso is very far.
Very far. So you come to court and only to be told that
it's been adjourned.
Sometimes I remember one of them saying, "Ekosi dabe." She said, "Ah, they ever backward, David." I said, "Madam, do you really understand the processes that is happening? You just have to understand that. Look, there are moments that you know that today's court sitting is just for an adjournment. So there's no need even coming. Somebody can communicate the time to you and all of that. But for them, once it is their case, they want to follow it with keen eye. And those are some of the challenges associated with court proceedings. Sometimes you might end up using the whole day and then you have done nothing because of things that you have to follow up in court and all of that. So, May 6th, hoping that they will come and they will hear something positive.
Okay. Let's look at some of the cases coming up today. Martha Nkrumah and Lil Wayne are back in court.
Yes, the two, this actor and an actress.
So we can call them actors, the two actors, or thespians, yeah.
So Martha Nkrumah and Lil Wayne are back in court. In fact, the original date was yesterday. They were supposed to appear in court yesterday, 1st of April. Yesterday, April Fool. A lot of things were flying. A lot of things were flying yesterday. You just have to know that we are in April to be able to understand all. But the two were supposed to be in court yesterday. That was not April Fool. That was real.
Well,
but unfortunately, yesterday
was a holiday.
We were enjoying a holiday. So the law is that once a case is coming and then it falls on a holiday, you shift it to the following day. So today, they are expected back in court. And what are they back in court for? You know that we're talking to you about the fact that this 5 million defamation sum filed by Martha Nkrumah against Lil Wayne is by the roller coaster, forth and back. And at the last court sitting, it looked like the parties have made some headway. They have agreed on terms of settlement. What they are supposed, the court have allowed them to go and do is go and put everything on paper, and then they will bring it to court. So they are supposed to announce their terms of settlement today to the court today. And if all the processes parties signed, and the court will adopt it. Once it is adopted as a consent judgment, now the parties will then have to follow whatever plans they have put before or in that document that both of them have signed. So that is what we do expect, that they will come to court today before Justice Forcing Ban Ejepon. So Lil Wayne and Martha Nkrumah are back in court, and the expectation is that their terms of agreement are to be filed, and same will be adopted as a consent judgment, which will put finality to this whole controversy and all of that. As to whether that is what will happen, because it wasn't easy at the last court sitting, even when they were agreeing the terms and all of that. But of course, they need to let the court understand, and they took these days for specific reasons. So we hope that they will come to court and they will inform the court that they have been able to settle on all that they have to settle. And their terms, of course, once it is something that the parties themselves agreed on. One thing that these terms will include is an apology. We told you about the fact that Martha Nkrumah rejected the previous one because it never certified the elements of proper apology were missing. There was a new one, and Lil Wayne also want that new apology to come out when he's also satisfied that everything surrounding the amount is certain and all of that. So these are the things that we should expect in court today. In fact, the parties will officially inform the court that we have settled the matter, and these are terms of settlement. We want the court to adopt it. And once the court adopts it, you cannot go back and say that, well, they didn't say. You have to follow that straightly because the parties themselves agreed and adopted those terms and understanding. And so that's what we do expect in this case. Then
the Ahmed Swale murder case.
And the granting Usu.
The supposed best friend of late Ahmed Swale.
The man, we are told, allegedly sold pictures of Ahmed Swale to Kennedy or Hine Japan. And days later, the man on your screen was killed. So he was arrested. He's on a provisional charge of murder. He was arraigned at the Medina District Court 2 weeks ago, but his plea was not taken. The charge was read to him. The brief fact was read in open court, and then he was remanded. I know the lawyers attempted to seek bail at the High Court, but we'll follow that particular bail application at the High Court and see what has become of it. But today, he is expected back. But this was supposed to have happened yesterday. Yesterday, April 1, he was expected back at the court, but because yesterday was a holiday, today he will make an appearance. So he'll be back in court, and we'll know whether further investigations have been carried out and whether the prosecution, upon the conclusion of that investigation, will still maintain the charge of murder, and whether indeed where they have gotten to, the case docket will have to go to the Office of the Attorney General for advice, because when it's a murder case, certainly the AG's advice is needed before the charge could be firmed up. So as we speak, it is a provisional charge of murder. Until such time that investigation really connects him to the offense of murder, and the docket go to the Office of the Attorney General, and the AG's advice is that all the evidence shows that his link is connected to the death, then that particular charge would be affirmed up, and then committal will happen at the district court, then the case will be transferred to the High Court for the trial to go and stand there. So at the district court, his plea will not be taken, whether he's guilty or not guilty before, because the district court do not have the power to do that. So that's one of the cases that we expect happening today. Then, Abesim murder. Richard Appiah, once upon a time a footballer. He wanted to represent Ghana at the World Cup, one of the World Cup. And so, if we look at that Abesim case, it was very horrific. The manner in which the Richard Appiah is said to have allegedly killed 2 teenagers, buried the body parts in a refrigerator, and then he was arrested. So he's facing a charge of 2 counts of murder, and that 2 counts of murder, it's in relation to the death of the 2 teenagers and all of that. So that case, he was supposed to empanel the new jury. In fact, at the last court sitting, the jury was discharged. The jury panel was discharged at the last court sitting because one of them decided opting out. And so before Justice Rubiaite, that case is coming. So that is Richard Appiah on your screen at one of the moments in court and all of that. So he was leaving. You see his height, and it's good for football. Yeah, his height is very, very good for football. Imagine this one, and then Samuel. Yes, in the Black Stars. You know, he's also very bulky. He bullies defenders with his stature and all of that. But of course, today he's expected in court. You know that you have a conversation with the judges here about the jury, the new jury reform. And it's one of the cases that the new jury reform, the system, will affect. So that case is also back in court today, and we'll know. Then on your screens, Vincent Assefuah versus the Attorney General. Yes.
On the removal of the petitions for the removal of the CJ.
Filing his document, there was an injunction also in the mix. And if you see the document on your screen there, check the right top corner, 27th of March 2025. That was when it was filed at 9:30 a.m. And of course, so that's the suit number also in ink and all of that. And just below the notice of a motion application for interlocutory injunction, it's a handwritten that says that Wednesday, 2nd April 2025, meaning that today the Supreme Court is expected to sit on this very application for interlocutory injunction. But Lily, let me show you something. So on your screens now is the Supreme Court course list for this week. And this week, it starts from today, Wednesday, 2nd of April, 2025. But when you go through the list of today's list, cases that are supposed to appear before the Supreme Court, we do not have the Vincent Assefuah's application against the Attorney General regarding the injunction or the interlocutory injunction to stop the president from seeking the processes activating processes to remove the Chief Justice. The same thing. So you go through the whole of Wednesday, that particular case has not been listed. And when you go through Thursday, let's go back a bit. When you go through, okay, so Thursday, 3rd of April, also listed the number of cases that are supposed to happen. And on Thursday, one of the big cases that is happening is relation to the disputed parliamentary seat. That will feature. The last that we told you it was adjourned indefinitely, but that has been featured or stated or listed for hearing on Thursday. So, in brief, we do know that Vincent Assefu's case is at the Supreme Court, but what is clear by way of the Supreme Court course list for this week, we started from today and tomorrow, that case is not listed. Whether it's an oversight, we'll still be at the Supreme Court to see what will happen in relation to that. So these are some of the things that we should be paying attention to by way of what is happening in court and in court today, this morning.
All right, Captain, thank you very much. So that's
Thank you, Lily. You didn't ask me anything about Arsenal.
No.
You don't want to ask me?
Today, no.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's Murtala with court today.